Welcome to the deep dive. This is where we take sources, articles, notes, research, and really try to pull out the most important uh, nuggets of knowledge for you.
Uh-huh.
And today we are diving deep into something I think everyone grapples with: the psychology of temptation, how your brain justifies sin.
Yeah, it's a big one. And for this deep dive, we're going to blend some, well, really powerful ancient wisdom, specifically from the book of James, with some pretty cutting-edge findings from modern behavioral science.
Exactly. And our mission, really, for you listening, is to help you understand how your own brain sometimes rationalizes choices that maybe don't quite line up with who you want to be.
Right. And more than just understanding, equip you to actually spot that temptation earlier,
Hmm.
gain some clarity, and crucially, take responsibility for those choices.
So whether you feel like you're wrestling with something right now or you're just curious about, why we do the things we do,
Or maybe you just find human behavior fascinating.
yeah, then this deep dive is definitely for you. Okay, so let's unpack this foundational idea first. The ancient wisdom we mentioned comes from James, chapter 1, verses 14 and 15. And it's pretty direct. It says, "Each one is tempted when he is drawn away by his own desires and enticed. Then desire, when it has conceived, gives birth to sin, and sin, when it is fully grown, brings forth death."
Mm.
Now, that passage, it feels like more than just a moral rule, doesn't it? It seems like a deep psychological observation.
It really is. I mean, what's so striking about James here is how it shifts the focus.
Hmm.
It insists that temptation doesn't come from God or even primarily from like outside circumstances.
Right.
It starts within. It's rooted in our own desires.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
this deeply personal internal thing that we kind of fuel.
Fuel is a good word.
Yeah. And James uses this really vivid imagery. Almost biological desire is conceived, it grows, and then if you let it run its course, it brings forth what he calls death. Now, that could mean spiritual death or maybe the death of a relationship or emotional harm.
Sure, lots of kinds of death.
Exactly. But the core message is about taking responsibility. It's about our inner landscape, our desires, and how we choose to engage with them, instead of just blaming, the situation or other people or whatever.
So that desire, that initial pull, it might start really small.
Incredibly small, like a seed, as James implies.
Yeah.
But if we entertain it, if we water that seed, give it mental space,
Hmm.
it can grow into something much, much bigger.
Okay, so it's that subtle internal process, that feeding of the desire. And what's really remarkable is how modern psychology seems to have, well, mapped out the actual brain mechanisms we use for this justification, right?
Absolutely. It's fascinating. Our brains are kind of wired to help us feel okay about ourselves,
Yeah.
even when our actions might contradict our beliefs.
Like a self-preservation thing.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
The first big one psychologists talk about is rationalization. It's a classic defense mechanism. Basically, our brain cooks up a logical sounding reason for a choice that might actually be illogical or wrong. It helps reduce that inner conflict,
Yeah.
protects our self-image. It's that little voice saying, oh, it wasn't really so bad, or I had to do it because.
Right, right. I deserve this slice of cake because I had a hard day. That kind of thing.
Exactly. That's a perfect everyday example. Your brain is running a little internal PR campaign for the cake.
Okay, got it. So that's rationalization. What else is in this psychological toolkit for justifying things?
Well, closely related is something called cognitive dissonance. This is that really uncomfortable feeling you get when your beliefs clash with your actions.
Like, I believe I'm an honest person, but then, oops, I just told a white lie.
Precisely. That clash creates dissonance, discomfort, and we're strongly motivated to resolve it. Sometimes we change the behavior, but often it's actually easier to change our story about the behavior. We justify it.
Ah, so you either fix the action or fix the story. Makes sense. Okay, and then you mentioned moral disengagement. That sounds a bit more serious.
It often is. Moral disengagement is how we mentally rejig things, maybe minimize or reinterpret unethical behavior so we can live with it. We sort of switch off our moral compass temporarily for that specific act.
How do we do that?
Oh, various ways. We might sanitize the language we use, compare it favorably to something worse, blame the victim, spread out the responsibility so no one feels accountable. Basically, mental gymnastics to feel okay about doing something not okay.
Wow, it's like finding ethical loopholes in our own minds.
Sort of, yeah. And then there's one more that's really subtle and quite sneaky: self-licensing.
Self-licensing, tell me more.
This is where doing something good, like maybe you worked really hard, donated to charity, ate a salad for lunch,
So,
unconsciously makes you feel like you've earned the right to do something a bit questionable later. You've banked some moral credit, So now you can afford a little withdrawal.
Oh, that's insidious. I was so good all week, so this weekend binge doesn't really count.
Exactly that kind of logic. Your internal moral ledger feels balanced, so you give yourself a pass.
It's just amazing how neatly these psychological concepts line up with what James was describing thousands of years ago. That small desire gets entertained, and then these mechanisms kick in, the rationalizations. Oh, everyone does it, or just this once, or maybe even blaming God. Well, these are the circumstances I was given.
Precisely. Those are the sounds of cognitive dissonance being resolved, or moral disengagement clicking in, or self-licensing whispering in your ear.
Yeah.
It's the brain trying to smooth things over.
And this internal battle, it's not just occasional, is it? I heard some research suggesting it's pretty constant.
It really is. Some studies suggest we face desires, urges and wants, about half the time we're awake. Think about that.
Half the time. Wow.
Yeah. And of those desires, maybe about a third conflict with our longer-term goals or values. And then get this, roughly 1 time in 6, we actually failed to resist those conflicting desires.
1 and 6. Okay, that paints a picture. It's like a constant, low-level hum of internal negotiation happening all the time, maybe even subconsciously.
That's a great way to put it, a low-level hum.
So is winning this negotiation just about having more willpower? Or is it more complicated? I remember reading about some brain scan studies, fMRI stuff.
Yeah, you're touching on a really key point. It's not just about gritting your teeth harder, necessarily. fMRI studies, like some done by Green and Paxton, show something fascinating.
What did they find?
They saw that our brain's reward centers often light up almost instantly at the prospect of immediate gratification. It's like a quick automatic response.
Before the logical part even kicks in.
Often, yeah. Before our prefrontal cortex, the part involved in reasoning and long-term planning, fully engages to say, hey, wait a minute. So it suggests it's less about a simple lack of willpower and more about the speed and power of those immediate, automatic urges for reward.
So if those urges are so quick and powerful, what's the point in even trying to fight them? Why not just try to avoid temptation altogether?
Well, avoidance is definitely a useful strategy sometimes. But there's real value in what we call direct resistance. This isn't just sidestepping the issue. It's actively confronting that pull and saying no.
Okay, facing it head on.
Right. And research suggests that the effort involved in that direct resistance does something important. It actually makes the choice feel more meaningful. It signals to yourself that you're committed to your values. And it builds self-knowledge, self-awareness.
Ah, so just dodging the temptation doesn't give you that same benefit.
Exactly. Avoiding the cookie jar is smart, but actively deciding not to eat the cookie when it's right there in front of you, that struggle, that conscious choice actually builds something inside you. It strengthens that resistance muscle.
Okay, that makes sense. The struggle itself has value. Now, talking concepts is one thing, but seeing it play out, I think a real-world example could help here. Many people know the story of Oprah Winfrey.
Yes, a great example. She's spoken quite openly about facing these kinds of internal pulls, especially early in her career.
What kinds of things?
Things like the temptation to gossip, which is common in media, or to overspend, or sometimes being pressured to take on projects or say things that didn't quite align with her core values.
Right. And did she talk about how she justified it then?
She did. She described those classic rationalizations creeping in, thinking, everyone in Hollywood does this, or just this once won't really matter, or this is just how the game is played.
Textbook rationalization and maybe some moral disengagement there?
Absolutely. You can see those psychological patterns right there. But she talks about reaching a point where she consciously decided, I'm drawing the line here. She chose not to go along with something that felt wrong, even if it was easier or expected.
That moment of direct resistance.
Exactly. Yeah. And she identifies that act of standing firm, of resisting that immediate pull for acceptance or ease, as something that fundamentally built her character. It connects perfectly back to James.
Mm-hmm.
The desire was there, it was conceived, but she chose to resist its growth.
And that resistance bore fruit, not in sin or regret, but in integrity.
Precisely. It shaped her values and ultimately the kind of influence she would have. That resistance wasn't just a one-off, it was an investment in her future self.
Okay, so if temptation follows these patterns, and our brains have these justification tricks, how can you, listening, get better at spotting temptation earlier, before it snowballs? What are the practical steps?
That's the crucial question, and there are definitely strategies. First, anticipate. Think ahead.
Like pre-planning.
Sort of. Research actually shows that simply thinking about potentially compromising situations before they happen Helps people make better choices when the time comes. It links the potential situation to your sense of self, your moral identity.
Can you give an example?
Sure. Think about a parent talking to their teenager before they go to a party where there might be pressure to drink. Okay, you might face this situation. What are your options? How would choosing X or Y align with who you want to be? Just having that conversation beforehand makes a difference.
Okay, so anticipate. What's next?
Second, notice your internal cues.
Mhm.
Pay attention to how desire actually feels. James talks about being drawn away and enticed. That feeling, it could be physical, emotional, a thought pattern, that sense of being lured. That's your early warning system.
So recognize that little tug, that pull.
That's the moment to hit pause internally. Ask yourself, what's this feeling? What desire is pulling me right now?
Got it. Pause and notice the pull. Then what about those excuses we make?
Right. Third, reflect on your justification scripts. When your mind starts playing those familiar tunes, just once won't hurt, I deserve this, everyone else is doing it, circumstances made me do it, recognize them.
See them for what they are.
Exactly. See them as signs that your brain is trying to justify something, that moral disengagement or rationalization might be kicking in. Question those scripts. Are they really true? Are they serving your best self?
It's like becoming aware of your own internal lawyer trying to argue a weak case.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
And finally, building on what we discussed earlier, choose direct resistance when appropriate. Don't just rely on avoidance.
Okay, unpack that a bit more.
Look, avoiding temptation is often smart. If you struggle with online shopping, maybe unsubscribe from marketing emails. That's good strategy. Remove the trigger.
Makes sense.
But you can't always avoid temptation. And when you face that pull directly, choosing to actively resist it, even if it's hard, is where real growth happens. That effort, remember, reinforces your commitment, builds that inner strength, adds meaning. Don't just avoid, learn to resist too.
Okay, anticipate, notice the cues, question the justifications, and choose direct resistance. Those are really practical. So let's bring it home for our listeners. How can they apply this knowledge, like starting today? Any specific tips for different areas of life?
Yeah, definitely. For individuals, just for your own growth, try keeping a simple temptation journal.
What would that involve?
Just jotting down, what was the situation or trigger? What was the desire or thought? Did any justifications pop up? And what choice did you make? Doing this consistently builds amazing self-awareness over time. You start seeing your patterns.
That sounds really powerful, like becoming your own behavioral detective.
It really can be. Then, for learning and teaching, maybe if you're a parent, a teacher, a mentor, a manager, talk about these concepts. Discuss rationalization, discuss self-licensing.
How would you do that?
Use stories, maybe hypothetical situations, or even real-life examples from the news, neutrally, of course. Ask questions like, what justification might someone use to cheat on this test? Or, how could someone convince themselves it's okay to cut this corner at work? And then, how could they resist that? It makes it concrete.
It gets people thinking critically about their own potential justifications. Okay,
Yeah.
what about modeling this ourselves?
Huge. For personal modeling, especially as parents or leaders, try to model anticipating temptation. And maybe even share your own struggles, appropriately, of course.
Right.
Like saying, you know, I was really tempted to just veg out instead of exercising this morning. My brain told me I was too tired, but I reminded myself of my goal and I pushed through. You're showing the process of noticing the temptation, the justification, and the resistance.
Not just pretending it's always easy. Okay, and lastly, maybe in a work context.
Yeah, for professional contexts, be aware of things like self-licensing, especially after successes. You can even gently make the team aware. Maybe say something like, look, we just landed a huge client. That's fantastic. Let's celebrate. But let's also remember, this doesn't mean we can relax our standards or get sloppy on the next project.
Setting that expectation for ongoing integrity.
Exactly. It counters that unconscious feeling of, we've earned a little slack now.
This has been incredibly insightful. So let's try to wrap this up. What does this all really mean for you listening right now? We've journeyed from James 1.14-15, understanding temptation starts within, how desire grows.
How it can lead to sin and deeper consequences is unchecked.
Right. And then we dove into the brain's toolkit for justification, rationalization, cognitive dissonance, moral disengagement, that sneaky self-licensing.
Yeah, how our minds try to make us feel okay, even when we're off track.
And finally, the power of anticipating temptation and especially the value of that direct resistance for actually building character.
So maybe this raises an important question, a challenge really for you to take away. The very next time you feel that internal pull, that little nudge or desire, just pause.
Just for a second.
Just for a second. Try to put a name on the desire.